Shalom, family. We're going to talk about the calendar and how we know that the Gentiles weaponized the calendar as another way of keeping us away from our Heavenly Father. Because when you look at the Bible, there are certain times things had to be done. You know, you had the harvest, you had the holy holidays, you had to pay attention to seasons. And if you change the calendar and you make changes to the point where days are coming off, then there's no way what we're doing today is even close to what we really should be doing. So it's another way to disconnect us from being close to our Heavenly Father. Now, I know some people, because I use Enoch calendar too, but you're using that calendar based on the Gregorian calendar. You're counting the days that are spoken about in the Bible, and but you're using that on the Gregorian calendar. So even if you're using Enoch calendar, you're still wrong. I mean, do you see how deep what these Gentiles have done? So if you're going by Saturday only, Sabbath, that's wrong because they took days off of the calendar. If you're going by Enoch calendar and you're counting the days on the Gregorian calendar, we're all still wrong. But I mean, look, I'm going to break down how they went from a Julian calendar to a Gregorian calendar. So the Gregorian calendar is pretty recent. And these folks change so many dates and times, and it is just not even funny. There is no way we're even close to being accurate on the things that we do. Okay. And we're going to start talking about the Julian calendar, which came out in 45 BCE. And I want y'all to hear how flawed this calendar was. And the calendar, the Julian calendar, was used for 300 years and it was badly flawed. All right, so let me see if I can get this up. No. All right, hold on. I'm going to pull what many of you have already seen up on the screen. Okay. Now, the Gregorian calendar did not come about until 18 I'm sorry, I'm 18, 1582. That's when the calendar began. Now, the Catholic Church also played a huge role in changing the calendar. You know, we always talk about a lot of the biblical things that they changed, but you don't hear a lot of people talking about the Catholic Church also taking part in changing the calendar that you're looking at today. All right. So let's get into it. So, in the beginning, the Gregorian calendar that we use today was not even introduced until 1582. And it was to make up for all of the inaccuracies that were found in the Julian calendar. They just jacked up everything. When I say, this is what makes me laugh. These people try to act like they are the most intelligent ones on the earth, right? But when you go in the history, these people look insane and like they don't have any sense at all. Your history sure don't make you look intelligent. Far cry from it. So the Gregorian calendar also was known by different names. It was also known as the Western calendar, the Christian calendar, okay, that is widely used today. Now, the Julian calendar was not accurate at all. Now, why was the Julian calendar so inaccurate? Because when they created the Julian calendar back in 45 BCE, they left off all astronomical events. So things like the moon phases, they just skipped over that. Okay, or anything that was retrograde or anything like any planetary alignments and things like that, they left all of that off. They totally ignored anything that was astronomical events, eclipses, and, you know, So, being that they ignored astronomical events, they did not acknowledge the vernal equinox or the winter solstice. So, not only were they inaccurate with the calendar, y'all, they were inaccurate on the seasons as well. They didn't even have the seasons right. So if you ignore the astronomical events, then you also ignore how long it takes the earth to circle the sun, which means your days were off. You had the hours of the days that were incorrect. So you see how that threw everything off because they chose to ignore what was going on in the heavens. You got to pay attention to that. I mean, how do you know how long a day is if you ignore that? So they didn't even have the hours of the day right. They had nothing right. Nothing was right on the Julian calendar. So they were adding days in, taking days off. Months had 35 days. And you'll see when when I get more into how the months went on the Julian calendar. I mean, it was ridiculous, y'all. So because they ignored what was going on in the heavens, they had the vernal equinox and the winter solstice wrong. To make up for the error, they made attempts to sync eventually to the astronomical seasons and numbers of days when they created the Gregorian calendar. Now, the Gregorian calendar is still heavily flawed, y'all. Now, they did improve the calendar somewhat from the Julian calendar, but it's still flawed. All right. So, over the centuries since the introduction of the Julian calendar, they eventually switched. So it was 300 years, y'all, 300 years to switch from the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar. So the British Empire, which at the time included North American colonies, back then in September 1752, September only had 19 days in the entire month. So it just goes to show you how horrible their calendars were. Back then, September only had 19 days for the entire month. That was it. All right. So it was in 1752. That's when you saw the British colonies adopt the Gregorian calendar. So if you go down, if you look on top, it was the first 5 countries to adopt the Gregorian calendar was France, Italy, Poland, Portugal, and Spain. In 1583, Austria, Germany, and the Catholic states. And that's when the Catholic Church came in and started removing days. All right. The days were removed by the Catholic Church. Hungary, 1887. 1610, Germany, also known as Prussia. 1700, Germany and Switzerland. In 1752, the United States finally started using the Gregorian calendar. So did Canada and the United Kingdom, all at the same time. And you can see in the calendar days removed, this is how many days they struck off. That's why you notice how even in other countries, we're not really uniformed on how the calendar is used, even to this very day. So you can see each country and what days they decided to strike off of the calendar. So there's no consistency, even to this very day, on how the Gregorian calendar is used. Right. So, Mike, see, that's right. We wouldn't know what day because they taken days off, put days on, and did all kinds of crazy stuff. We wouldn't even know what our real feast days are. We don't know. We may know, have some idea what time of the year it might have been when we had the feast days, but we really don't know when. And again, that is another way to disconnect us from our Heavenly Father because we're not doing things accordingly like we should be. You know, there should be a lot of things on this earth we should be doing certain times of the year. And we don't do those things because number one, we don't know what all of those things are. Yeah, we can get things out of the Bible, but if they remove things from the Bible, do you really have it all? No, you wouldn't. You wouldn't have all the things we should be doing. And if they struck days off, then there's no way. It doesn't matter what calendar or moon phases or anything you're going by, it's going to be off. You know? So, you dance with the devil, you're going to pay a price for that. That's what they decided to do. All right. So, the Julian calendar was replaced because it did not correctly reflect the actual time it takes the earth to circle the sun. So they were all off on the day, like the length of a day. So it was known as the tropical year. The Julian calendar, a leap day, was added every 4 years, which was too frequent, according to what they thought back then. Although it is not perfect either, today's Gregorian calendar uses a much more accurate rule for calculating leap years. But they could not even get the Gregorian calendar right until they came and copied off of us. Because, that's all they are. They are a nation of copiers. But the thing is, the Asians are better at copying than these folks here. They're way better. Cameron Charles, thank you so much for the super chat. Hold on, it just went by kind of fast. Shalom, Lisa Danian 725, and he shall speak great words against the Most High and shall wear out the saints of the Most High and think to change times and laws. Exactly. Exactly. Right. Because if we're not doing things in certain times, then we're not really connecting with the Most High, on the physical things we should be doing down here on the earth and the times that we should be praising Him, on those holy holidays accurately. Boy, we're not really doing anything right, but it's not our fault. And the Most High knows that. He knows it's not our fault. We can only do the best that we can. That's all we can do. All right. Let me get back to this. So, over the centuries since the introduction of 45 BCE, um, the calendar actually lost time. So, when were the number of days lost? The papal bull issued by Pope Gregory the 13th in 1582 decree that 10 days be skipped when switching to the Gregorian calendar. So the Pope, during the time of the papal bull, struck 10 days off of the calendar. Only 5 countries in the beginning adopted the Gregorian calendar. Since the discrepancy between the Julian calendar year and the astronomical seasons kept growing over time, so in other words, they were way off on the seasons, they were way off on when the year changed, they were way off on everything, y'all. It kept growing. More days had to be skipped in countries that switched to the Gregorian calendar in later years. The US, Canada, and UK dropped 11 days in 1752. Japan cut the year 1872 short by 12 days. Some countries, such as Russia, Greece, and Turkey, switched the calendars in the early 20th century. So they had to omit 13 days from the calendar. So the switch took more than 300 years. In total, more than 3 centuries passed until the Gregorian calendar had been adopted by all countries from 1582 to 1927. So that's what you see on the table in front of you. Calendar chaos. So the delay in switching meant that countries followed different calendar systems for a long time. Can you imagine that? The entire earth were following all kinds of different calendars depending on what country you lived in. It was not uniform at all. And it should be. That's how it's supposed to be. The days in every country should pretty much be uniform. But they said it was not like that at one time. It was real chaotic. Leap years differed from country to country. The new year differed from country to country. And the Gregorian calendar, most years that are evenly divide by 100 are common years, but they are leap years in the Julian calendar, which means that the years 1700, 1800, and 1900 would always be leap years according to the Julian calendar. So Greece, while they had their own calendar, Greece at that time was mainly going to the Julian calendar. That's what they were going by. They switched to the Gregorian calendar. So a double leap year for the Swiss Empire, a double leap year. So Sweden and Finland had a double leap year in 1712. 2 days were added to February, creating a February 30th, 1712, after the leap year day in 1700 had erroneously been dropped, and the calendar was not synchronized with either the Julian or the Gregorian calendar. By adding the extra leap day in 1712, they were back on the Julian calendar. The Gregorian calendar was later introduced in 1753. Now, there were many variations. Did you know in the beginning, when they came and formed the colonies, there was a calendar for the colonizers and a separate calendar for the colonies? I mean, these people are insane. They're completely out of their minds. How the hell did they get to rule the world? So, anyway, some non Western countries, the calendar reform took as many guises to accommodate differing cultural and historical contexts. So they had everything wrong. Even the things they celebrate was all screwed up on these calendars. For example, Japan replaced their lunar solar calendar with the Gregorian calendar in January of 1873, but decided to use the number months it had originally used rather than use the European names. In China, they adopted the Gregorian calendar. They said it was between 1912 and 1949. They initially adopted the Gregorian calendar, January 1912. but it wasn't actually used due to warlords using different calendars. However, the nationalist government in 1928 through 1949 formally decreed the adoption of the Gregorian calendar in China on January 2029. 2029. So it just goes to show you in the beginning of the 20th century, there were many countries still using the Julian calendar. They did not all switch. Currently, the Julian calendar is 13 days behind the Gregorian calendar. So, to convert the Julian calendar to the Gregorian calendar, they had to add 13 days. To convert the opposite direction, you would have to subtract 13 days. So, the gap between the two calendars will increase to 14 days in the year of 2100. So they just jacked up everything, y'all. They really did. They messed everything up for us. And you don't know how bad it is until you start reading through this stuff. But this is, yeah, I mean, yeah, well, the Catholic Church said AI rich, they were the ones during the papal bull that struck out 10 days. So these folks know what they were doing, y'all. They knew what they were doing. And they want all of this confusion over the time. They want all of the confusion because if we're confused, then we're not doing anything in the right time. So this is exactly what they wanted all of this time. Hmm. So this is what I wanted to go over with you. But, this is not to say you should not do the things that you're doing. We have to acknowledge our Shabbat weekly. We should, even if we can't do it to the letter, still acknowledge our holy holidays and our feast. We should still do these things, even if we don't have the accurate time. We should still do these things, ladies and gentlemen. All we can do is our absolute best. And that's what we are doing. We are all doing that. We're doing the best that we can under the circumstances that we're in. So, although these days that we're doing may not be accurate, trust me, the Most High is going to be happy that you even tried. So, just keep on doing what you're doing, y'all. So, don't look at this and say, well, what am I supposed to do? No, what you're supposed to do is continue on as you're doing, you know, but also keep in mind that we probably don't have these things correct. That's all. Trust me, the Most High, He knows and He understands. He's not going to give us a strike because we're doing these things on the wrong day. He knew these things would happen. Hmm. You know, Romy Black, thank you for bringing that up. 6 days you work, and the seventh day is a day of rest. You're right. You know, these folks are also, you know, according to the biblical text, we're supposed to get paid at the end of every workday. Do y'all know that? At the end of every single workday, you're supposed to get paid. All of this getting paid every other week and every week and once a month, you're not supposed to get paid like that. You are not supposed to get paid. If we go in and work an 8-hour day, they're supposed to be handing you money at the end of that day that you work. That's how it's done. So even the way we are being paid in this Gentile world is absolutely incorrect. We are not supposed to be paid the way that we are. You're supposed to walk out of your job every day with some money. Okay, real physical money. That's how you're supposed to walk out every day. Mhm. So yeah, I mean, these folks are going to catch all kinds of hell based on how they have paid, paid us in this society, and they don't acknowledge the jubilee year where you forgive debt. They never ever forgive debt. They practice usury, and if anything, they're taking advantage of us and really robbing us blind. I mean, look at the situation with the property taxes. You own the house, but you never own the property. That is the dumbest thing ever. That is the biggest swindle they got going. They're charging us for the land that they stole. I mean, y'all, do you see the abomination and how we're being paid up in this society? Because that's what it is. It's an abomination. Oh, that trust me, the taxes is a swindle. That's what it is. It really is. Mhm. Well, yeah, the 12 birthstones that they sell for, each time of the year each one of us were born. That came off of the shield that the Levites used to wear. If you look at the gems that are in the shield that the Levites would wear, it aligns up with those birthstones that they try to sell everybody now based on the time of the year you were born. That's all that is. The birthstone is a ripoff from the shield that the Levite priests used to wear. That's where that's where that comes from. So that's what they took. Now it's a birthstone and everybody's walking around with their birthstone on, and that actually comes from the shield that the Levites used to wear. So that's where they got that whole concept from. It actually comes directly from our people, the 12 tribes of Israel. Mhm. Well, yeah, that's what they interested Abbott. That's the whole goal, is to keep us confused. If we're confused, then we're not doing anything right. That's the whole point. And they've kept us in this state for centuries now. But a lot of us are seeing the light and we are accepting that probably nothing that we learned in this society is correct. Literally nothing. You know, school, in my opinion, the Gentiles' version of school is to empower their people and make them believe they are so much better than everyone else. And we know that's the furthest thing from the truth. These people got more flaws than anything I've ever seen on the planet. But they have this brainwashing going on where they're better than everyone else, although they're heavily flawed. And they want to condition our children to be subservient. That's how I see school in America. They want to keep us in a subservient position and elevate their children. That's why I don't like schooling in America. I don't like it because at the end of the day, it ain't nothing but a boatload of brainwashing. They want you to stay in a certain state. And I'm sorry, you ain't going to make me in my state in no certain state. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. No, I am not sending my kinfolk off for you to brainwash or make them believe they're less than. If you got to tell me that I'm less than, chances are that I'm not. Okay. If you got to go out of your way to tell me that, chances are I'm not less than at all. probably more than you at the end of the day. That's how I see it. And if you are smart, you don't have to get on the soapbox every day. We're smarter than everybody else. We got a high IQ. You don't have to do all of that if you were really truly smart, because if you were smart, that would ring through your spirit. We would all see it. You would project it every time you walk in a room. You would project that intelligence, but you don't. You don't. You have to keep getting on the soapbox trying to convince everybody of it. That tells me you're not intelligent at all. Mm-mm. Ain't falling for it. But see, the more we elevate, the more they're going to scramble to try to stop it. But at the end of the day, y'all, it is written. The change in the switch is going to happen. It doesn't matter what they physically do on this earth. It will not stop what's happening. Thank you, Thaddeus Peterson, for the super sticker. All right. There is nothing a flawed being on this earth can do to change what is coming. Never forget that. All right. And if they're preparing for this war with the Most High, their war is already lost. Okay. It is already lost. So, everybody, that's all I have for you today. Thank you so much for being here. And we'll definitely do this again at another time. And for my channel members, I know I missed Friday, and I did post this in the community tab just in case some of you did not look at the community tab. I was not available Friday morning. Something came up in my family, and I was not able to do our weekly live stream. So I will be doing it this coming Sunday. All right. And I'll try to get that posted sometime today. So if you are a channel member, I will see you then. And if you are not a channel member, you should consider joining. We're having a good time having our discussion. So you might want to join. So, everybody, may the Most High always walk with you. Shalom, family.